In the news this week, another actor has been cast in the movie Shazam. Asher Angel will be playing Billy Batson. Asher will be joining Grace Fulton, Mark Strong, and Zachary Levi on screen, with David F. Sandberg directing. It feels like for the last couple weeks, we've been talking about just one thing after another in a positive way about the Shazam movie. It feels like they're really starting to make some good progress, and they're really covering some ground when it comes to actually casting this out and making sure that everybody in line for this film is the right fit. This is really good news because we don't really know how everything is going to work out for the Justice League film, if that's going to be highly accepted by the fan base and the critics. But we do know that they had a smash hit with Wonder Woman. They were kind of okay with Suicide Squad up until, that last bit towards the end in the third act where it gets a little, So I like that they're paying attention to making sure that everything right now is lining up for this new Shazam movie. Because again, if Justice League doesn't knock it out of the park, we're all going to be kind of holding our breath to see how well Aquaman does. And if Aquaman is as good as Wonder Woman, or at least comparable in enjoyment, then I think that maybe the Shazam movie will fall in line there. And perhaps DC just needs to kind of move away from the bigger Batman and Superman stories for a little while and just kind of focus on side characters. And that's not to say that Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Flash are all side characters. But as far as the DC films go, from what they've been making, it's primarily Batman and Superman. So everything else and everybody else has kind of been on the sidelines. So that's what I mean by a side character. It feels like they're really putting in a lot of attention, and it's the right kind of attention to find the right people to play these roles to make it all work together. Because like I said, every week for the past couple of weeks, we've had some positive news about Shazam. So I think we can be excited about the Shazam film, even if Justice League bombs. So I'm strongly encouraging everyone to keep the proper mindset that even if Justice League is just a stink fest, we shouldn't let that stink waft over the other films. We should just go, okay, that was a bad film. Let's move on and let's get excited about Aquaman. Let's get excited about Shazam. Maybe we can get the Flash movie going, and then hopefully we'll get that Green Lantern Corps movie going. And then we can revisit the Justice League with fresh eyes, a fresh writing perspective, and just really deliver on something that will be what everybody who's a fan of the Justice League wants, and will excite a brand new fan base of Justice League fans if they can nail the second film after they get a good series of films under their belt, starting with hopefully Aquaman. Universal's Dark Universe is headed for dark times as Alec Kurtzman and Chris Morgan have departed the franchise, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Link for the article in the show notes below. So Universal had this great idea where they said, why don't we just use these monster characters that we have the rights to and make our own shared universe, similar to what Marvel did with the Avengers. So they brought out the big guns, right? They gave us the Mummy, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Dracula. Now we're looking at Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, the Invisible Man, the Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon. We have all of these great characters we can look at to see if we can actually get a shared universe going. So people like me who grew up watching these old black and whites and then eventually into color, these old monster movies on reruns, can get excited about something new. Now I did see the Mummy movie with Tom Cruise, and it was not a good movie. And that movie also did have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in it. So that movie was supposed to be the launch of the Dark Universe. That movie did not do well. It was a massive stink fest. That's going to be the word of this week's show. And it just didn't deliver at all. It felt like it had bits of like Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, but then it felt like just a Tom Cruise action movie. And then it felt like just this new interpretation of The Mummy. And it's just so much all going into this story, and none of it gelled. It all just kind of... So they just kind of went, well, maybe we won't do it. Maybe we'll try with the Bride of Frankenstein. And then that kind of fell off the table for the time being. So now it looks like the two guys who were trying to spearhead this and really get something going for the old monster movie fans like you and I, it's just not going to work right now. And that's okay, because I've said it before about other films. I would rather have them hold off on a film if it means later they can deliver us a good film. I don't want a mediocre film. I don't want them to make a bad film. I want them to make great films that they're passionate about. And then when I sit down in the theater, it's just an overall positive experience. And I can just sit back and go, wow, they really did pay attention to the mythos of these characters, and they really gave us something fresh and something new. That is just such a better time in the movies than sitting there going, well, we've got to give them something, so this is what they're getting. And that stinks. Nobody wants that. And nobody wants to spend their time or their money on that type of delivery or on that type of product. So if they're pressing the pause button, if they're saying time out, that's great. I would rather them do that and then come back to the drawing board, create something brand new that will work with the people that they have available to them right now that are hungry to tell these kind of stories, and then start working on those stories to deliver us this brand new dark universe that may actually turn out to be something wildly entertaining. Deadline's reporting a new film titled Luce has begun production in New York. The film stars Naomi Watts, Octavia Spencer, Tim Roth, and Kelvin Harrison Jr. The story is about an adopted African teenage boy who is a child soldier, but has been adopted and is now being challenged by a teacher regarding his views on political violence, which ignites debates on race and identity while also putting a strain on family bonds. Link for the article in the show notes below. The plot, the synopsis that I just read sounds crazy intense, right? Super drama. Sounds like you could really dig into hot button issues and really explore ideas to create an atmosphere that allows the audience to think possibly outside of their comfort zone in a safe environment. That's kind of what a movie can do. That's the power of film. You sit in the theater, you have a safe environment that you're in with fellow movie lovers, right? So everyone's there ready to enjoy the film, and then the film can deliver a story that challenges your way of thinking and can possibly even enlighten you. That's good writing, that's good storytelling, and that's what this film sounds like to me just from the synopsis. Now, I haven't seen a trailer or anything like that because it's not available. They just started production on this. This sounds really good. And this story in particular really spoke to me because when I was younger, we actually had foreign exchange students living with us when I was growing up, and they would tell us the stories about what they went through in their country growing up through a civil war and what their responsibilities were to protect their family during this civil war in their country. So when I read this, I was like, holy moly, flashback city. So having to explain this to someone who's grown up in American culture and American society with the freedoms that we have here and just how people have, houses with running water, electricity, cars, clothes every day, food every day, and then they're fighting a war in their town or in their country, in their city, and then they come here and it's like, guys, it's really not it's not as bad as you think here. You could be doing worse. So when I read that, I was like, wow, because you have the struggle of a teacher and a student. And there's always the possibility that the teacher might be like, what does this kid know? I'm the adult. And this kid's going, you've never lived through a war. Please let me tell you what's going on. Let me kick some knowledge your way and get you hip to the situation I'm trying to tell you. And I just loved it. I read this and I was like, I can't wait to see more about this movie. If the trailer delivers and it actually looks like the dramatic piece I'm hoping it can be, I will be very excited to see this in the theaters. So fingers crossed when that trailer drops, it looks as intense and intriguing and thought-provoking as the synopsis leads me to believe it has the potential to be. Stay tuned to this show because we'll be talking more about this movie as more news drops. Disney and Lucasfilm broke the internet this past week when they announced that director Rian Johnson is getting a Star Wars trilogy after the work he's done on The Last Jedi. Last Jedi is set for theatrical release in the United States December 14th, 2017. Well, guys, if you are alive and breathing, which I'm assuming you are if you're watching the show, if you're a ghost and you're watching the show, come find me. We need to talk. If you're on the internet, you saw this news because it was everywhere. It didn't matter if it was a movie website. Everybody was talking about this. In my Twitter feed, my Facebook, even Instagram had little meme stuff going off. This was everywhere. Why can we be excited about this? Here's why we can be excited about this. Star Wars The Last Jedi is set for release just a little over 30 days. Rian Johnson directed this film. That means the powers that hold the reins of Star Wars and the stories of Star Wars at Disney and Lucasfilm have seen this film in its final cut and went, wow, this is incredible. we need to get this guy on board for more Star Wars. That's really the only way I see this happening, that someone would just get the reins to create a brand new trilogy, is if they did such a phenomenal job and their vision for the story and for the overarching stories and the mythos of Star Wars and the grand scheme of this cinematic universe was so well thought out and so well constructed with so much heart and love and attention to detail and passion that they went, yeah, we got to get this guy. Sign him today. And that's really the only way I see this going. So as a Star Wars fan, my expectations for The Last Jedi were already like at 10 out of 10. Hearing this news, we just broke through that ceiling and now we're going, this is Spinal Tap. We've turned it up to 11. Now I already have my tickets. I got all my tickets for my family. So me and the fam, this is a Star Wars family. It's going to be a Star Wars event, and we are going to be there opening night. And again, my expectation went from a 10. We turned it all the way up to 11. We crashed through that ceiling. I cannot wait to see this film. This is such good news for us as fans. Even if you're not a Star Wars fan, this should excite you, because if you're going to go see The Last Jedi, which I assume you will, because you're human and pretty much everyone will see this film, it should still deliver on something that's going to make you a new fan of the Star Wars universe. You may be only a fan of that film, but that film is part of the Star Wars universe, and now you're part of the Star Wars family. So I think we can all be excited about this news. Congratulations to Rian Johnson for actually getting the green light, which is a huge honor, in my opinion, for Star Wars to be like, hey, we got so much faith in you, bro. You're doing this if you want to do it. And Rian Johnson went, I'm doing it. And then the rest of the world rejoiced, and the internet completely crumbled into a ball of glorious fire of people celebrating and dancing and singing Yub Nub, because that's what you do when you celebrate Star Wars. Honorable mentions this week include new movie posters for Black Panther and Deadpool were released. Suicide Squad 2 might include Black Adam. First look of Sam Jackson back for the movie Glass popped up online. Sandra Bullock is set to star as Senator Wendy Davis in the new film, Let Her Speak. The Academy announced 26 films were submitted for the Best Animated Feature category for next year's Academy Awards consideration. And that pretty much concludes the news segment this week. If you enjoyed any portion of it, please do give me that thumbs up button, because by clicking the thumbs up, it actually helps other people who enjoy movies and movie shows on YouTube find this channel so we can continue building the movie fan base and the movie loving community. All right, if anything popped off in the news that caught your attention that we didn't cover on this show this week, because there's always something that pops in the news, there's just so much happening, it's impossible to cover it all in one show. So go ahead and throw it in the comments below and share with us what excited you about movie news this past week, or even if something dropped this morning that we didn't get a chance to get to because we do pre-record this show.